You are significant. You have seeds of greatness inside of you. You are not on accident. You are on purpose. You are here for a very divine, special purpose. And we are going to talk in this podcast about evidence that you are significant. All right. So we are together today for You Are Significant, and we are here to honor our veterans because Veterans Day is all around us at the time of this recording being released. It is Veterans Day, and we are so thankful for our veterans and for those who have served. My husband is a veteran, and he is here with me today. And I am so thankful for him and his service, and wanted him to help me explain what is a veteran and talk about this important topic of veterans and honoring our veterans today. So welcome to You Are Significant, honey.
Hey, glad to be here. First of all, shout out to all of my Marine buddies. November 10th is the Marine Corps birthday. So hoorah, Devil Dogs
Hoorah.
for that. And then, of course, November 11th is Veterans Day itself. So Veterans Day, as far as the history goes, it really goes back to World War I and Armistice Day, which was the day that the armistice was signed between all the different warring powers, primarily France, England, and the United States, and then Germany on the other side, as far as World War One. And then Armistice Day then was turned into a day to honor all veterans, and so that's when it became Veterans Day. And now Veterans Day sometimes gets confused with Memorial Day, which is towards the end of May every year. Veterans Day is a day to honor all veterans. Memorial Day specifically is to honor those veterans who have passed, whether they were killed in service or, like my dad. My dad's a veteran, but he just passed away, from cancer several years ago. So he had already retired before that happened. But that's really what Memorial Day is for that. So I mean, there's nothing wrong with thanking a veteran on Memorial Day, but again, the main focus of that is as far as those who have passed, and especially those who gave that ultimate sacrifice, during their service.
And even thinking about 4th of July.
Well, 4th of July as well.
What are we celebrating on 4th of July?
4th of July is the nation's independence, which a lot of that was bought with the blood of service members. So again, a lot of different opportunities. May is Armed Services Month, I think, if I remember correctly. So a lot of different festivals or I don't know, just different things honoring veterans and service members during that time. So, but that's kind of the history a little bit about Veterans Day and some of the other holidays associated with veterans and what the differences are on that.
Thank you, honey. I think that is very helpful because if you're not a military family like we are, it's not discussed or always well known.
Yeah.
Like, what is the difference between these holidays? And a lot of people are just enjoying the time off work, enjoying parades, enjoying the sales at the stores, the flags flying, and thinking about our country and honoring our country, but not always quite sure like what is the exact aspect that we're focusing on. So veterans is anybody that served in the military, but it's past duty. They're not active duty. And so that's another aspect to look at. Like when we go in and maybe we're going in a theme park to enjoy a day. We love to go to Dollywood in the mountains, and they offer military discount, active duty, veterans.
Yeah.
And those are some different terms. And even looking at this and doing a little research, there's inactive duty.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. There's a lot of different statuses, if you will. of military service members. You can have somebody who was on active duty, and that's somebody who wears a uniform today, and their job is to be, a soldier, sailor, airman, or marine, or Coast Guard, and so forth.
So they're under a current contract and they're
Right,
currently
right. They
serving.
are currently serving. Right.
Yeah.
That's going to be somebody. Well, and that's going to be somebody who's doing it every day. And then you might have people who are in the reserves, which could be either Army Reserve or Navy Reserve, Marine Corps Reserve, that kind of thing, Air Force Reserve, or the National Guard. That's also a reserve component. We'll call a reserve component. And so those are your guys that are 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year, that kind of thing.
And all of those could be veterans.
Right, right. Once their service has ended, then they would be sort of moved into that veteran status. So
Yeah.
again, there's a lot of different, there's inactive reserve and whatever. We won't get into all that, but there's a lot of different statuses for people to be in, as far as their service goes and so forth. So there's some legal definitions in terms of veteran, like how long you actually have to have served. I don't even remember what all that is, but
To be a veteran.
yeah, yeah. And why that matters is there's certain benefits, of course, that come with being a veteran. And so there's a whole host of those things. And so if you qualify for those veterans benefits, there's certain things that, criteria and so forth to be able to qualify for that. So,
Okay.
yeah, but it could be somebody like me who's
How long do you have to have served?
well, I was going to say it could be somebody like me who spent 27 years, in service.
And like what, 5 years was Marines, and then
Yeah, about 5 years in the Marine Corps, and the other 22 in the Army, basically.
and then the National Guard.
Right, right, as a full-time guard. Yeah,
And full time.
right, right.
Not the 1 week in a month. Some
Yeah,
of it was
I did some of that, but
but
so it's some of my career was wearing uniform every day. So I was kind of, it's what they call active guard and reserve, or AGR. And that's the guys who work at that National Guard unit every day. So that when the soldiers come in on the weekend,
everything's lined
prepared.
up.
Yeah, yeah.
How many years did you serve in the Guard active duty?
Let's see. Well, from 98 to 11, whatever the math is on that. So
Okay.
yeah.
So tell us a little bit more then about why you joined the military.
I come from a military family. So my dad was in the Navy. His father, my grandfather, was in the Navy during World War II. My dad was a Vietnam era veteran. My great grandfather did not serve, but then my great great grandfather, and again, this is all through my dad's line. He was in the Civil War. So I mean, there's a long military tradition. My
That
brother,
was Alfred.
yeah, William Alfred. Yeah, yeah, and on both sides. So there's a long history of service. My brother was in the Army. He was a helicopter pilot. My sister, she's married to a guy who retired from the Navy. So again, just a military family. We've been around it a long time. I knew pretty early on that was kind of the direction I was going to go, and so I actually enlisted when I was still a senior in high school. So November 28th, 1984 was the first time I said, I do solemnly swear. So.
Wow. 84. So you started out in the National Guard in Washington State?
I did. Yeah. I spent 2 years. I had a buddy that I was in high school with who was in one of the local Guard units, and he, because I knew I was going to go into the military at some point, but he was telling me about that. And so I ended up doing that for a couple of years. And then I got released from that to go active duty into the Marine Corps. So I had already gone to boot camp, to basic training, and to my individual training for the Army for that 2 years, or for the Army Guard. And then when I went into the Marine Corps, I did it all over again. So I had to go to San Diego for boot camp, and then go to Pensacola, Florida for my skill training, and then from there to end up going out to Hawaii. So and getting to spend 4 or 5 years out there. So, and that was the late 80s. So I was in the Marine Corps during Desert Storm with Saudi Arabia and all that kind of stuff. And then after the Marine Corps, left that in 92, came to Alabama. My best friend at the time was from Alabama. And so I ended up kind of following him here. and that was
That's
in
how we met.
that's how we met. Yeah, because he was from Cottondale, Tuscaloosa, and so we ended up in Tuscaloosa, and she ended up in
Woohoo!
Tuscaloosa, and so that's kind of how that
Sparks were
happened.
flying.
Yeah, and but I went back in the Alabama Guard, and I was in the Guard for a little while, and then in
I had to fly my flag
for
on the sparks flying.
for about I don't know about 5 years, where I was just kind of doing the 1 week in a month thing, and then was able to get on full time with the Alabama Guard as a recruiter first, and did that for about 3 years, and that was in '98 to 2001, and then transferred units, and just ended up getting some different jobs, but working in some units here in Athens where we live now. So,
Yeah, the unit in Athens was military police when you.
well, it wasn't
It
at the
didn't
time.
start out that
No,
way.
no, it was Patriot missile, so
Mhm.
air defense, and then that changed in 2005, and so we all got retrained into military police, and then 2006, 2007. So then I went overseas to Iraq.
What was the number of the unit you were in for that?
It was a 128th Military Police Company
For the deployment to
for the
Iraq.
deployment to
Okay,
Iraq.
I was
Yeah,
trying to
yeah,
remember that the other day,
yeah.
talking to somebody about your deployment.
So spent a year over there, and then came back home, and then a couple of years after that, in 2011, retired. So it was almost 27 years to the day, because I enlisted initially November 28th of 1984, and then my last day in uniform was November 30th of 2011. So
Very close to
very,
Veterans Day
yeah,
too.
that's right.
Veterans Day month, November.
Yeah.
And you were with the Huntsville unit with Special Forces.
I was with them for a while. Yeah, for about 5 years.
And then the Athens unit before you joined it was an engineering unit.
It was an engineering unit for years, for decades, and then in 1995, I think they changed to Patriot missile, and that was kind of an experiment that didn't really follow through. But they did that for about 10 years, and then 2005 changed to military police.
Are they still military police now?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
And they're still up and running.
Yeah.
And you retired out in 2011?
2011, right. Almost at the end of 2011. Yeah.
So tell us a story.
It's hard to believe how many years it's been. I mean, it's been over 10 years now.
I know it
gone by fast.
Really, for me, being a military wife, it's not, it doesn't feel like, we were military. It still feels like in a lot of ways we are military. Just being a veteran's wife, it's a mindset. It's a way of life. It's a mindset. It's a priority. Like we very much have a consciousness of those who are serving, their families, the sacrifices being made, both for the soldier that is deployed and the family at home.
Well, you got introduced to that literally right after we got married. I mean, we got married in April of
April 30th, 1994.
94, and then within a couple of months, I was
June.
Gone. Yeah, by June, I was gone for
3 weeks.
Yeah.
Oh, it was so hard.
And you had never had any experience like that before.
No, it was so different because I was a minister's daughter, and he was home a lot. He was home in and out all day, and very much a part of our family life. And so it was really different to become a military wife with, a man who was serving, every weekend, and had, those active times with training every summer, going to trainings, and then for promotions, going off to schools.
And that was the life that I grew up in, being a military brat. So I was used to that. So I mean, that was an adjustment to our marriage, and it took us a lot of years to really sort of to realize,
just to come to peace.
For me to understand your perspective and for you to understand mine.
It was hard not to hear from him when he was gone on trainings or schools. Being the background I had is we stayed together. Our family went everywhere together. We lived together, worked together, played together. I wasn't homeschooled, but other than that, went to public school. But in a lot of ways, our family was just very, very close. And you were raised in a military family that was so independent. Each person was independent because they were used to dad being gone, mom working, mom being gone. Um, Everybody having their own thing to do. It was so opposite.
Very different.
And so after 31 years almost, April will be married 31 years. I think I've brought him along a lot because we're really, really close and we like to do things together and really prefer that. And I think that's a big part of why we're moving, because he's gotten a promotion with his civilian job. And we don't want to live, and be hours apart and days a week, living in two separate places. We want to live together.
Yeah. I knew guys when I was in the service, they would take a promotion in another city, 3 hours away, and they would live down there during the week and then maybe come home on the weekend or something for that promotion. And I had that opportunity.
Yeah.
And I chose not to do it. And it actually cost me, some rank to do that. So, but I mean, that's the choices that you make. So,
yeah, family is really, really important. And our country is important. Our spiritual relationship is super important. We love our church family. And so just learning to balance that and setting priorities. And I think this is important to note because, maybe people think of military families a certain way, but we're humans. And so every military family, every active duty or veteran status family isn't going to be the same.
Yeah.
And we probably, I don't know, again, I may be making a generalization. I feel like we're maybe unique or on the not the majority, the minority of families that would maybe choose that. But I think that just goes back to your heart and is a reflection of how much, maybe one of the reasons you joined the military was you love your country, but you also love your family. And your family had a military background, so you joined keeping that tradition, but then you love your family you created, as we got married and had children. And so loving our family, you served your time 27 years, but then we're really, really enjoying you being a veteran now too.
Yeah.
So how old were you when you retired out as a veteran?
2011. I don't know. How old was I? Let's see.
That would have been
44, 45.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
44. Yeah. 44.
So a lot of years, good years still left to
Hope
do
so.
other things, start a second career.
Right.
You've been in ministry 11 years, and we started in recovery ministry, our own recovery journey, and then that's led into paying it forward in 2019, fall of 2019.
And we're working in health insurance.
And working in health insurance
since,
that a lot. 6 years?
Well, been with Blue Cross for 6 years, but I was independent before that.
Yeah.
So,
And then before that, you were working on the side of like going out to homes and recording things for policies.
I was doing whatever I could do. I was doing pizzas, whatever.
Well, you worked for a company that that recorded the stuff in the computer for their policy. Right. You had to put, is it a 1 story, story and a half, 2 story? What's it made of?
No, if you call somebody, if you call an insurance company, and if you call Alpha or somebody and say, hey, I want to get a quote on my house or insure my house, they're going to send somebody out who's going to look at that house and take pictures and measure it and do, just to make sure that they're not just taking your word for it. Somebody's going to verify that, okay, here's what we're insuring. So, but that was something I did for a little while. So, and that was interesting work. And it was good because it gave me an opportunity to sort of get in the car and go, after having been in an environment that was very controlled and had to wear the same uniform every day and lots of rules and things like that, very structured, which was fine. but then to get to now in an environment that was very independent, it was just me and my car and my camera, and and I had where I was going that day, and so it was a nice change of pace, for a little while to do that. So
Yeah, that's
didn't
how you got
didn't
started in
yeah,
the insurance
didn't really make
world.
any money, but it was a nice change of pace anyway.
Well,
Um,
and we're very thankful for the retirement
mhm,
that you get for being a veteran.
yeah,
That is such a blessing
yeah,
and has been a huge blessing all along the way.
yeah.
So, tell us a story or two
That's
that
why people.
endears veterans to you.
Well, I was going to say
Shifting gears.
that's why people will say thank you for your service, and I always tell them thank you for paying your taxes. So,
Thank
um,
you.
when I think about my career and I think about all the people that I've served with and through all of those years and in different services, in the Army and the Marine Corps, I mean, I literally, I think maybe the Coast Guard is probably the only service that I have not interacted with. But all the services that I've interacted with, worked closely with the Air Force at times and with the Navy a lot, when I was in the Marine Corps. And uh, it's just lots of stories, lots of experiences, lots of good times, lots of challenges, challenging training, challenging real life situation, having been in Desert Storm and also in Iraq, and having seen that and some of the differences. So I mean, I obviously I have a heart for veterans and especially disabled veterans and those who suffer from their wartime or service experiences, PTSD and stuff like that. And it can be challenging. There's guys that I mean, their experiences were very different from mine. Um, and much more difficult in terms of things that they saw, things that they were involved in. I mean, a lot of things like that. So, um, I have a special place for, or just a great affection for those people and for their service and for the impact of that service on them. So, um, and something to keep in mind too. We were talking about families earlier. if if you have a family member that's in the service, you all are in the service. If the husband is the service member or if the wife is the service member, the whole family's in the military, because what happens to them happens to everybody. If they get orders and have to move
True.
somewhere, everybody moves. If they, or they don't, but it impacts the family. If they get promoted and there's a raise or something negative happens, I mean, whatever happens to them happens to the whole family. And so that can be challenging. And if unfortunately, if they get deployed and they go overseas and those experiences have an impact on them, physically, mentally, emotionally, all of those things, and they bring that home, it
Hmm.
impacts everybody. So
Hmm.
um, when you're thanking the veteran for their service, remember their families as well. Okay. Um, so just remember when you're thanking the veteran, think about their families as well and the impact on their families. So, one of the things that's real special to me is the Veterans Memorial in Huntsville, Alabama, and I'm sure you could Google it and look it up, but um, I'm sorry, it's kind of in a horseshoe shape, and there's all the different wars on the walls. There's fountains and all that kind of stuff, but one of the things that's really neat is sort of on the ends of the horseshoe there are on one side there's three um, statues, three figures, and they are dressed like World War I soldiers, and the appearance, they're in action, like they're coming up out of a trench, to go fight. And then on the other side are three soldiers, more modern time in terms of how they're dressed and so forth. Um, and it's two soldiers that are facing forward, a guy on one side and a female on the other, and they're dragging, another soldier, with them, carrying a wounded soldier, but kind of dragging them away. And what's really special about that to me is that of the 6 figures that are represented there, 3 of them um, are modeled after soldiers that I served with in Iraq, and so that's a pretty neat place. The female, she was with me, and I'm not going to mention any names because I don't have their permission to, but um, she was with me in Iraq. The wounded person being drugged, that person was with me in Iraq, and then one of the soldiers that's in the World War I dress, uniform. He was also with me in Iraq. So that kind of makes it real personal for me, and extra special to know the, to know those people, if you will. So that's kind of a neat thing. But yeah, there's lots of good story. I think about, going all the way back to boot camp. I think about the drill sergeants and the drill instructors, and the things that they did to try to bring the best out of me, and doing things, um, going to schools and training, going to airborne school, which thousands of people do every year. But
What's airborne school?
Jumping out of an airplane with a parachute, that kind of thing. That was never something that I thought that I would ever do.
How many jumps did you get?
Not too many. Maybe 35 or 40 total in my
That's
career.
a lot.
It's
for a civilian. How many times have you jumped out of an airplane, y'all?
Yeah.
None. Once, maybe if you skydived.
but I mean,
we appreciate you doing that. Babe.
Well, I've been very fortunate and very blessed. God has put people in my life that have helped me to get to places and to get training and just to be in positions to really have a great career. That 5 years in the Marine Corps was amazing. The things I got to do and the places I got to go and people I got to work with and so forth. Unique, I think I can say that. And then, all the people that I've worked with in the Guard and just amazing people, great commanders, great soldiers, just a lot of great people. Just very thankful for that.
Well, thank you so much for your service. Thank you to all the veterans and their families. And we do honor you. You are significant, and your service doesn't just make an impact during the time of active duty, but it continues to be a blessing always. So thank you so much for your service. Happy Veterans Day.
Yeah.
And we honor you today.
Go get your free meal.
Thank you for listening to You Are Significant. Please leave us a review. Please leave comments, give us a like, and share this out. We appreciate you here on You Are Significant, and I cannot wait till next time to spend time with you.